So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about here briefly is some of the lilies on the lily pads. So if we take a look at our piece, you can see that we start to see that longer sinuous flick happening with the lilies and the lily pads. So I want to show you guys how to do that. Again, as always, this requires a lot of layers. We don't want to see any of that white canvas peeking through. So when we do this, we may find that we need to do a couple of layers in order to get things to look the way that they should. So I'm just going to show you on that lily pad here, which has quite a bit of a pink flick, and I think that will show up really nicely on camera. So over here on my palette paper, I am grabbing some of my white paint, and then I'm going to grab a little bit of this like pre-mixed pink. When I look at that, when I look at my palette paper, and I know it's not on screen, I'll slide here so you guys can see what I'm doing. When I look at this, it's a bit too intense. That would be good for like the lily pad here, but it's not quite pink enough for me at this point. I want more of a really lighter pink here. I think that's looking better. So I'm gonna grab my larger brush here, and again, we want it to be damp, so I'm just gonna get it back in my water and then give it a little quick blot on my towel. And so I'm gonna show you guys how to do the flick. So we want to kind of quickly move our wrists, and I'm gonna move my palette paper back out of the way so you can see what my wrist is doing. So it's a very quick snap of the wrist, almost like you're doing like a half circle very, very quickly. I'll show you guys again. So just like that. You may need to reverse course in order to finish. Actually, I can't believe I got that to line up that nicely. I'm crazy impressed with myself right now. So it's this more, man, again, I am just on fire this morning. So, just really, and it doesn't have to connect like that. If we take a look at Monet's piece, it doesn't quite connect that perfectly. And so, we can continue to build up. And again, when I do this, I see that there is also like a super light blue. It has like a tiny touch of green, so I'm mixing that up on my palette paper right now. This very light minty blue-green color. And so again, I'm going to do that one more time. I think I've got a good angle here. Okay, so it's more of that quick little flick of the wrist. If you need to practice this, of course, I always encourage you to do that on like a piece of scrap paper or in your process journal, to really give yourself that practice. Those sort of longer strokes. Now, even when I look at this, I can even see that there is some of that beautiful bright yellow color. And again, this is not the time to be conservative with your swipes of paint. There's nothing wrong with really loading your brush up here. This is very different compared to what we were doing on some of our exercises from our previous thing. So don't be afraid. The Impressionists definitely were not ones to shy away from using good swipes of paint. And even when you look at that, you can even see there's like almost some pure white in there. So you can grab a little bit of that pure white. And again, you may need to wait for some of this to dry before you can go back and do some additional little swoops here as you start to build up those lily pads. It really is that sort of quick little flick. You can even see that there is occasionally there's some of that little darkness. And again, don't be shy with the paint. I'm being probably way too conservative at this point. Yeah, there we go. You know, to make sure that you are getting that sort of coverage that you are going to need. And if you need to switch to a smaller brush, you know, please feel free to do that. I just grabbed my number 10 brush because, oh no, this is a number 7, because that's what I thought I wanted to use initially on these first few lily pads. Now there is a section of lily pads that is slightly different. They actually have like more of like the open flower, and so for that we are going to use another brush stroke again. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to grab the more intense pinky red color, and that is almost more like a little dab because the flower has opened. And so we just want to do, and this one really is going to be, we're going to need to let some things dry before we come back in and intensify these things. I just realized I didn't look at my painting and I put an extra open one where there is not one. That's okay. That's why it's always good to make sure you're looking at your reference. And then once this dries, I would go back in and put some yellow and some white on top of that to fill in the rest of the open lily flower, water lily flower. I feel like I've now made it weird. I'm gonna stop. Okay,